Welcome to another video. Today I want to share with you how you can use the KNIME Community Hub to deploy and execute your workflows. The reason for that is that a few weeks ago the KNIME team announced that they now offer a promotion to test this entry-level cloud offering for free for a full month with some execution credits. So on my screen you can see right now some of the details and what you can do. So you can collaborate on workflows in a private online space. You can run your workflows to do analysis or schedule them ad hoc. You can benefit from version control and track changes. And you can scale up and down based on your needs because it's flexible pay as you go. And you get 1000 execution credits so that if you run it in the small tier, gives you up to 500 execution minutes. So it's a very generous offer, I'd say. What I want to share with you today is how you can sign up, how you can then upload a workflow and execute it, how you can schedule it so that it runs in certain intervals. And then I have a second, more advanced use case that shows how you can move part of your workflow that may be execution heavy to the team plan, to the KNIME Community Hub, and then interact with it via workflow calling from your local KNIME analytics platform. That said, let's start with signing up for this free trial. Okay, try it for free. I guess that's where we gotta go. Yep, let's sign in. All right, let me just take care of my billing details and everything, and then I'll be back. Okay, so I've put in all my data, but haven't yet pushed on continue because there's actually some useful information here around the credits. So for every workflow, I understand you can select, let's call it execution policy. And that will impact how many credits are consumed per minute. So bear in mind, we have 1000 credits available. So that means on this small setting, that be 500 minutes that workflows can run. And for that, we get 2 vCores and 8 gigabytes of RAM. Medium is in 4 vCores and 16 gigs of RAM for 4 credits per minute. And then it's 8 cores for large with 32 gigs of RAM. And the price per credit is 5 euro cents per started minute. Yeah, but bear in mind we have 1000 free credits, so we can get anywhere between 500 minutes and 125 minutes, so 2 hours and 5 minutes, depending on what setting I choose for the workflow. So that's quite, I think, a generous limit. So it looks like I've successfully subscribed and now I'm being moved forward to my team space, which is very good. Okay, so it looks like I can manage my team here. So by default, it's my KNIME Hub account, I guess. I have a second one that I used in the past for my YouTube channel. So let's go ahead and add that one. So that's low code AI for the win. And yeah, let's leave that at member. So then we can check out what the view as a member looks like going forward. So let's save the changes. Okay, so back to the spaces tab. Let's create first a space. Just a random name. And I'm just giving it a random name because I also want to test, let's say, the permissions piece. Okay, let's maybe add another one. And let's now explore what we can do with each of these spaces. So by default, it looks like it's only me who's on this space. Okay, interesting. There's a button, make it public. And it looks like I can now add someone. So I'll add my second account here. with view rights, yep. And I won't add it to the second space for now. Okay, that's really good. Here we can also see it, I guess. Okay, the next thing that I want to do is to connect from my KNIME Analytics platform on my desktop to the Community Hub and to my space here. So let's do one thing. Let me go here and let's just connect. And let's see, maybe I can see the spaces straight away because Finnovation Flows team. And here I have my different spaces. I see. Okay, that's really good. That should make it reasonably easy for me to deploy something. So let's maybe work on that. So the first example that I've prepared is a modification of my submission to the Just KNIME It Season 3 Challenge 28. This challenge was about grabbing crypto data from an API. So we have a GET request here. We then put it into a table format and work out what are the top 10 winners and losers respectively in the last 24 hours. And it's then visualized in this nice tree map. And whenever we reset this and send a new request, we get the latest data. So as of now, if you're on the team plan using KNIME Community Hub, you cannot deploy data apps. So I hope that feature comes in the future. That's why I modified this workflow to serve a use case where in certain intervals, I want to capture this data and save it to my Google Drive. So that's this data wrangling workflow. It's all the same in this upper section here. We grab the latest data and then I'm saving this to a Google Drive of a service account that I've created. And I may do a tutorial on how to do that in the future. The difference is that I go and authenticate to my service account's Google Drive, connect to the Google Drive, list all files and folders, and you can see I've made some tests here already. Based on that, I create a variable that has the name, and the name has a date and a timestamp in it. And then I simply go ahead and save that. And when connecting to the same service account, I could then read in all those sheets and do other visualizations with that or process that into a database or whatever. So let's now look into how we can deploy this on to the Community Hub under the team plan. Let's get it manually executed and then let's also get it on a schedule. So the first step to do that is to navigate to this workflow in our local space. So I go reveal in Space Explorer and then it's as simple as right clicking, select upload, and then instead of saving it to your public space, private select the team that you've created under your plan, and I will just deploy it in here for now. So then we go and navigate to the workflow, right click it when we are under the right space and select open in hub. And now we can see it on the hub, but we cannot run it yet. The next thing we have to do is give it a version. So click the version button, v1 and test. Now that we've created it, we can go and run it. This will now take just a moment and we'll be able to check if it properly worked by just looking at the new number of files and folders when we execute it locally. So that's looking good. Let's click here, finished successfully. That's what we want to see. And we can also validate that, I think, by going to our spaces, execution resources, and clicking in here. And here we can actually look at the inspect bit. So here we see before I saved this cut, we had 3 files in the folder. And let me now go back to my analytics platform. Let's reset this and execute. Now we have 4. So there's 1 additional file that was saved. Awesome. Let's go back to the hub and let's leave this view for now and what I'll also do is although it should shut down in a moment anyways. Right now it's running, because when it's running, that means it's consuming credits. So I'll stop this for now. Let's look at deployments. Nothing is available yet, but we should now be able to navigate back to this data wrangling workflow. And let's now create the deploy button. And deploy means in this case that we can put it on a schedule. And here we can define in which intervals it's supposed to be executing. So let's make this every 2 minutes for now. And let's start, I'm just looking at the time, start in 2 minutes from now. And we'll end in, I don't know. So now the schedule is created, and I will actually now look at this. So now we can see it under deployments, and it should start running in not the too distant future. So I'll pause until then. Okay, so let's take a look. The schedule ran already once, so that's good. And we can also inspect it here. All looks green, so then we can close it again. And it should be running one more time. And then we can also check how many files we now have. Let me just execute this for reference. So right now it's 6. So hopefully in 2 minutes time we should have 7, which would verify that it works as we expected. And there we have the second run, which also was successful. Now let's go back. So it's 6 files now. It should be 7. Yep, we have one more. Perfect. So that is one of the use cases where if you have jobs that need to be run in certain intervals or at certain dates, then you can easily schedule that using the KNIME Community Hub team plan. Let's briefly delete the deployment so that it doesn't consume any credits unnecessarily. That just works by going to the deployments tab, clicking on the 3 dots and go delete. And let's now move on to the second way how you can execute workflows on the KNIME Hub. And that's, let's say, a little bit advanced mode. So the second use case that I've prepared, or the second example, is a variation of my Challenge 30 submission. That is actually this week's submission. So the task here was that there is a large data set of questions that have previously been answered, and to make a customer representative's life much easier, the idea is to find a way how similar questions in this data set, which means questions of a similar meaning, can be identified to a question that a customer is asking right now. So that by looking at the answers of similar questions, a customer representative can serve the customer better. There are 2 components in my solution. One is for pre-processing and the other one is the data app, which the customer representative would be using. I won't go through this into too much detail, but in the pre-processing component, we load all the data, do a lot of pre-processing using the text processing extension, and turn the questions after pre-processing into vectors. And these vectors will allow us to later on identify questions with a similar meaning. The second component is a data app, and this data app allows a question to be entered, a button to be clicked, and then this question is also turned into a vector, ran against all the questions in the data set. So I'm using cosine similarity to identify what are similar questions, and these then appear, the 5 most questions found. In order to deploy this on the hub, I've broken it into 2 workflows, the hub workflow and the client workflow. So the client workflow will still run in my desktop application, and the hub workflow will execute on the hub. So the idea is that maybe resources on my machine are limited so that I can process all the data in a timely manner, and the hub has more execution power, so that would be one reason. The other reason would be that maybe this database is updated frequently with new answers. So then in order to make sure that always the workflow is run against the latest database information, it would make sense to process that on the server so that not every customer service representative needs to get the credentials to access the live database. Let's maybe look briefly into the front end of my original submission, which is also a fair bit lengthy. On the hub side, I still have both components. This has not changed at all. And this one has changed to the regard that there are no user inputs anymore, like the blue widgets and the refresh button have moved, and also the output, the table view, have been removed. So this is just now processing data and outputting data instead of visualizing that. And the other change is that I have made this a callable workflow by using workflow service input node and output node. So the input node collects the question that the customer service representative enters as a variable and passes it into my search question component, where the question then is vectorized and the search against the main data set is run. And the top 5 most similar questions are then output and sent back via workflow service output node. So on the client side, I still have my data app. And if I open this, you can see that here I have maintained the blue widgets. So the refresh button, the string widget where I can enter the question, and the table view. And in between is this call workflow service. There's also a space connector. So the space connector allows me to select the test space that I've created, where I've deployed the hub version of the workflow to. And this is also connected to the call workflow service node, so that here I can browse to the workflow that needs to be called. And now what I can do is I can use this component, run a search, and all the, let's say, topics that require execution power happen on the KNIME Community Hub. And there you have it, response received from processing of on the hub. Let's just go inside the component. So this call workflow service delivered the responses to my table view, and it then showed up. So that's the second example and use case on how you can use the team plan on the community hub. That's it for today. Let's wrap it up here. I hope you enjoyed, and I see you next time.